It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We want to start this hour by talking, though, with Senator Kim Hammer. We have him on the line. Senator Hammer, how's it going, sir?
It's a beautiful morning. Great day to be alive.
It really is. It really is. I actually can see the sunset here from the Answer Studios where we're broadcasting remotely, 101.1 The Answer. Hey, Senator Kim Hammer, tell me about freedom of speech on college campuses. Is it where you think it needs to be right now?
I don't think it's where it needs to be, and that's one of the reasons I, along with some others, have filed bills to address the issue. It's a collaborative effort among several of us. Way things work up at the Capitol, because of our bureau staff, they're not at liberty to share one. Various lawmakers are working on different items just because of confidentiality clauses, attorneys, and as a result, there was 2 or 3 bills that were dropped dealing with the college free speech campus issue. I think that sets the tone that it's something that's been recognized that we need to afford our students the opportunity to be able to speak freely on college campuses without fear of retribution or punishment by administration or professors.
Isn't it strange? I just remember the university used to be a place where you assumed freedom of speech was a thing that everyone agreed with. Students agreed with it. Professors agreed with it. That's not necessarily the case now. What's happened with our universities?
I think one thing, the trend that is going on in universities, I wouldn't want to throw a blanket over all of them. I think some do a better job depending on where they're located and what their community support and also their community pressure is, around the college campuses and the, community influence on the college campuses. But there seems to be, a growing trend where universities used to be institutions that, encourage you to think, encourage you to express your opinion and your thoughts, and, didn't necessarily dictate what the truth was, but, provided an educational base so that you could determine that. What I find that universities are turning into is they are turning into brainwashing sessions where even good, solid kids that come from good, solid homes that have good, solid values go to the college campuses. And what ends up happening, not with all of them, and not a blanket statement, but it is a growing, concern that they get placed into classrooms, and the power of intimidation over them limits their ability to speak their thoughts freely, or they are criticized, chastised, or in some cases, I think maybe even academically punished because of, their differences of opinion, either with, the instructor or with the administration.
So there is a, growing trend. You have somebody that's, very famous in conservative circles, very famous with younger people like Ben Shapiro, and he goes to Berkeley to speak, and they burn the campus down. I mean, not completely, but, they kind of have this riot-like mentality. And so that's kind of what I'm referring to. And then, there was a case at a state in Jonesboro where Turning Point USA, this organization, Candace Edwards and what they're trying to do to get young people to, kind of disengage with this totalitarian mindset of the left and maybe think more towards a live and let live free society. They're trying to get sign people up. And that's kind of where, I know there's a lawsuit involved now because they basically had what a lot of people are calling the free speech zone. And I think that is, that hits home. That's not necessarily the same thing as, burning down the campus of Berkeley by any stretch of the imagination, but it's kind of in the same direction, right?
Well, the thing about universities is they are there because of taxpayer dollars, and they are there because individuals pay their tuition, their fees. If an individual pays their tuition and fees and decides to go to a college, regardless of wherever it is, that, promotes or protects that type of idea, that's their personal choice. But I think where as lawmakers we get involved is representing the constituents that sent us there by, large margins, or even narrow margins, doesn't matter. We're sent there to represent the interests of the people. The tax dollars should not be utilized in a educational setting, whether it's K to 12 or whether it's college for that matter, to, and I'll be specific, to where the left has an advantage of intimidation or excluding ideas that may be contrary to the overall mindset of that university, especially if it's leaning to the liberal side. And that's not directed at any one university. That applies to any university that allows it to happen on their campus.
So we're talking with State Representative Kim Hammer, or I'm sorry, State Senator Kim Hammer. Listen to me. I'm living in the past. So Kim, there's been a couple bills filed to try to support freedom of speech on college campuses. Which one are you behind?
I filed one that you might say took it all the way to the far right wall, and then Bob Ballinger has filed one that has also gotten to the wall. What we are doing is working together with some conservative attorneys and conservative groups, and also working with the universities, because we want it to be a collaborative effort. We want it to be, embraced as moving in the right direction. And so it is turned into a collaborative effort. And there's also, I think, another one out there. But it is a combining of all the efforts to try to get us as conservatives to the right. The one thing people need to realize, though, is that we're kind of talking in the conservative lines because, that's who we are and that's what your program's all about.
Yeah.
But if you're going to protect a conservative voice, at the same time, you allow a liberal's voice to be protected too, because it's about free speech.
Yes.
It's not about protecting one side or the other. It's about making sure the rules are fair and making sure the opportunities are provided. And then may the best voice win, and may the driving force drive us across the victory line. Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. I think that is certainly the principled angle to take. I will add that I think one of the reasons maybe this is so focused on speech that leans to the right in term, obviously this, like you said, is a conservative program, but increasingly those on the left want to try to silence those on the right. And so that's why we have to reaffirm, say, listen, the speech is for both sides is okay. And if it offends you, well, that's actually just part of America. We don't have a right to not be offended because somebody says something we disagree with.
Well, the one thing you will notice that separates the left from the right is you don't see anybody on the left bringing these kind of bills forward. So that tells you something right there. The left doesn't see it as a problem because right now the left has leverage and has momentum and has, rooted itself into the institutions of higher learning as well as other institutions. And so they don't want it disturbed. That's why I think you'll see resistance against anything with free speech from the left is they don't want to upset the apple cart. And that's where I think we as conservatives need to at least advance it. So when this legislative session is over, we're going to be able to look back and say, you know what, we got ground and we didn't give up ground. And that's the goal right now.
Do you have, I know you guys are still working on the bill, but do you have maybe a timeline or an estimated timeline about when this is going to appear in committee rather?
As far as appear in committee, I think the amendments that are being worked out will probably surface sometime, next week. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of making sure that we align with the Constitution because we don't want it to be, a lawsuit filed immediately. And, the goal right now is to get it done by the end of the session, not necessarily get it done by the end of the day because we want it right.
Right.
And I've joined on with Bob Ballinger. We're working together along with others, and we're working to just make sure that when this session is over, we've afforded both liberals and conservatives, a greater voice in the classroom. If I got time, can I step to another direction on this subject?
Yes, sir. Okay.
So we're talking about the student in the classroom and about providing the student, that opportunity to have a greater voice. It's not only about the student, but it's also the professor in the classroom who maybe is working under an administration that is trying to silence the professor, and that can go both liberal or conservative. So free speech has to be geared toward not only protecting the student's right, but also protecting the professor's right that is teaching a class and has maybe a conservative viewpoint, but is working in a predominantly liberal environment on a college campus or a school campus. So that's part of what is taking the extra time to make sure everybody's right to free speech is protected. And that creates for the best stimulation of thought processes in the classroom.
That sounds fantastic to me. Senator Kim Hammer, we appreciate the work you're doing on this bill, and keep us posted, okay?
Appreciate your show, and thank you to all your listeners that are listening. Have a great day.
All right, you too, sir. You too.